There are going to be more fatalities than what people know. There's elderly people that in houses. I know of one chap in Allison, his mother perished.
Our thoughts are with those workers, and they're particularly with those families who are continuing to hope and anxiously wait for news of their loved ones.
Queensland has already faced some dark days, and there are dark days still ahead.
You're watching Nine's continuing coverage of the flood disaster.
Welcome to Nine's rolling coverage of this floods disaster. I'm Karl Stefanovic. Good to be with you tonight. We're standing by for Queensland Premier Anna Bligh to give a media conference shortly, just waiting for her to come into the press conference room. I know that you are craving details tonight on the latest with the flood situation. Let's check out those details now with Allison Langdon. Allison, good evening to you.
Good evening, Karl. And as we know, large areas of Brisbane are awash and the worst is still to come. Here's where the situation stands at the moment. 12 people have been confirmed dead, with the bodies of 2 men found earlier today. 51 people are still missing. The peak for Brisbane River has been revised down from 5.5 to 5.2 metres. It's expected to hit at 3 a.m. Queensland time and will remain for 12 to 18 hours. More than 50 suburbs will be hit by flooding. Already, at least 35 are waterlogged. Nearly 20,000 Brisbane homes will be inundated. And Anna Bligh, the Premier, has just arrived. We'll cross live now to that press conference.
But let's wait until we can be definitely sure about that, Karl. But, you know, I think the term surreal was used earlier today in terms of finally fine weather above us and yet this creeping flood threat from below. Well, I think now it's eerie at night with nightfall dropping, but the river creeping past. You can hardly hear it and you can't really see it now, but it is a whisper below us. And, of course, it's creeping in all night. And even though the city might be tired, it can't afford to take its eyes off it. And with me is the man in the middle of Brisbane's response to this, Lord Mayor Campbell Newman.
All right, Andrew, we'll leave it there with you for the moment. We appreciate you hanging around, though, a little bit later. I know that the flooding in those key suburbs will be important information for a lot of folks out there who are watching tonight, those who still have power. In fact, I have a sister who lives in Petrie, in the inner city area. I know that she doesn't have any power at all at the moment. It started, those cutbacks have started, unfortunately. Let's have a look at the hotline. This is the flood information hotline. That number again is 1300 993 191. That number again, 1300 993 191. But to reiterate, at this point, it looks as though the river system is not going to peak at those levels that we saw in 1974. That mark of 5.45 metres that we greatly feared. In fact, we were fearing that it could go even higher, perhaps 6, perhaps 7 metres. Well, now that has been updated tonight, and we can tell you that the levels that are expected to peak at 4 a.m. tomorrow morning is around about the 5.2 mark. So a very anxious night ahead for everyone.
There are going to be more fatalities than what people know. There's elderly people that in houses. I know of one chap in Allison, his mother perished.
Our thoughts are with those workers, and they're particularly with those families who are continuing to hope and anxiously wait for news of their loved ones.
Queensland has already faced some dark days, and there are dark days still ahead.
You're watching Nine's continuing coverage of the flood disaster.
And we would now like to welcome back our viewers from the cricket for this special rolling coverage of the flood crisis. Let's go straight to Allison Langdon now for the very latest developments. Good evening, Ali.
Good evening, Karl. Well, look, we know that in Ipswich, the Bremer River has peaked lower than expected at 19.5 metres. Still, there's been unconfirmed reports of a man found dead there. Now, the number of people missing has now been revised down to 43. 127,000 residents in Queensland are without power. Many won't be reconnected before the weekend. People in Chinchilla are being urged to boil their water before drinking after traces of E. coli were found, and more than 4,000 people are now in evacuation centres. And Karl, the official death toll, which of course doesn't include that death in Ipswich, that unconfirmed report, the official death toll at the moment still stands at 12.
All right, thank you very much for that, Ali. You are with our rolling coverage of the Queensland flood crisis and in Ipswich. As we mentioned, that Bremer River peaking a little bit lower as well. It was expected to be at 20.5, 19.5 metres was the high, and that has meant that the expected high in Brisbane is slightly lower. Let's go out to Sylvia Jeffries now with some unconfirmed reports, some more information on this story that a man has been found dead in Ipswich. What can you tell us, Sylvia?
Well, Karl, I got off the phone to the Mayor, Paul Pusali, just moments ago, and he has confirmed to me that a man in his 50s was found in his car this afternoon, swept away by the flood water in his vehicle. I'm not sure where or when exactly this has happened. The Mayor himself isn't too sure. It's all being pieced together at this stage. But he has confirmed that a man in his 50s has been found dead today in Ipswich. So obviously extremely tragic news, the worst possible news for Ipswich and for Queensland tonight. It takes the death toll in Ipswich itself to 2, and it would take the death toll in this event to 13 people.
Generally speaking, in Ipswich, we saw those floodwaters rise very quickly this morning. Can you paint a picture for us on how things are, how residents are doing there tonight?
Well, there was a little bit of relief, I suppose, this afternoon in that, as you just mentioned earlier, the Bremer River did peak at 19.5 metres this afternoon instead of 20.5. So that is a metre below the expected peak and about a metre below the 1974 level. But still, close to 4,000 homes have been flooded. A number of businesses behind me, the heart of the CBD is underwater. So you can imagine how much people have lost here in Ipswich. Probably up to 3,000 people, possibly more, have left their homes. There were more than 1,000 in the evacuation centres last night, and many more have gone to stay with family and friends here. We did a tour around one of the worst hit suburbs today, and it was horrifying. We were in a boat and we were floating, I should say, over completely submerged houses below us, 2-storey houses that were completely underwater. It's going to be some time, though, before people can get back to those houses. Electricity is still cut in some areas. There are snakes around. People are reporting red-bellied black snakes in their living rooms, things like that. So it is still very grim here in Ipswich tonight.
Yeah, these images are very heartbreaking to watch, and behind Sylvia, that is one of the main streets in Ipswich, to give you an indication of just how much water is running through that township at the moment. Well, Queensland Premier Anna Bligh has deployed additional resources to protect the city overnight. This is what she had to say just a short time ago.
There are some parts of Brisbane and Ipswich which already are completely unrecognisable. There are parts, particularly around Goodna and Gales, which just look like a large inland lake. In fact, parts of it seem to have disappeared, visually. So we will wake tomorrow to an image of Brisbane, to pictures around our city, our neighbourhoods, our schools. That will shock many of us, and I do say to everybody we need to be ready for that. But I think we will also wake to find people out there helping each other. We will find very quickly that people will be in each other's homes, giving a hand and lending support wherever they can. I think we're going to see some extraordinary solidarity overnight in our evacuation centres, and I think that we are going to wake up to a shocking and remarkable challenge. But I sense out there with the people and the reports I'm getting that this is a challenge we are up to and a challenge that we will meet. In the meantime, we all have an anxious night ahead of us. Our emergency people are out there on the front line. They'll be there all night.
An anxious night indeed. And in the next 8 hours, Brisbane will be at the epicentre of a major natural disaster. That is fact. While the city's flood peak has been revised down, there are still significant damage warnings. Live now to Nine's Mark Burrows, who joins us from New Farm in Brisbane. Mark, this is still a city under siege tonight.
Very much so, Karl. As you said, it was about 4.3 a short time ago, 4.3 metres above normal level, expecting to go to 5.2. That has been a bit of a respite to people here watching along the riverbanks, a fair bit less than that disastrous 1974 level, but still it's a huge volume of water.